I actually have speaking glasses.
Speaking glasses? You speak better?
I have a different set of glasses when I'm standing on a stage or when I'm looking in a camera.
Oh, because you need to be framed differently?
Yeah.
For your eyes.
Yeah, it's the speaking glasses are a bit more prominent.
Oh, yeah.
And they're a bit too prominent.
This is where my eyes are.
That's it.
Silence. Okay. So we are foregoing with the script.
Of course.
Because this is just a model. It is a conversation with Ron and myself. And we talk about the interstitium of everything. Of design, innovation, technology, ethics, politics. I think all the X and the EMs are there.
Yes.
And we used to have like a really long introduction. And this is basically it. By the way, this is value for value. And we have a first. Because our value for value scheme actually works. If you want to know more, go to the website itsjustamodel.com and click on value for value. It's on the top right, I think. And you end up with a page that explains the basic concepts, but the gist of it is we think we produce something of value. You enjoy it because you're listening. You spend time on this, so why not express that value in currency or talent or art or time, promote the message to other people, for example. But we also had like our first monetary support from Franklin. Hello, Franklin. And thank you very much. Absolutely. And he gave us some money and now we have less debt. Yeah, which is lovely. And thank you very much. And so if you'd like to do as well, there's a donate button on the Value for Value page. And you can add to the value that we experience as well. So there's that. You have a topic with you, I think.
Yeah. It's the... But before I get... this is episode number 6.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means we actually had 7 episodes because we started counting at 0.
Yes, we had a primer basically explaining the concept.
Because life starts at 0, but 40, but counting starts at 0.
Yes.
So that means that we now have more episodes than Sharknado. Which to me is a cultural landmark. So it's
definitely.
That's the...
Yeah. Are we past Star Wars yet? No.
It's also 6, right?
Is it? I think
no, it's 9, right?
They expanded the thing, right?
It's the 3, then the 3 before and the 3 after. So
okay, we have some work to do.
I only care about 4, 5, 6.
You know, I kind of I'm going back and forth with it because I kind of really like the heroics, but there is also like lots of aliens sitting and talking about politics, and that really doesn't capture my attention most of the time.
No, and a princess that was elected by her people. There is this phrasing. She's a princess and she was elected by her people. And I thought, well, that's an American scenario writer for sure.
I think so too. It's kind of dives into their royalty model, which is basically famous people. Yeah, and which is kind of nice. But I'm not sure if they're actually elected.
Yeah.
But I do like Star Wars for one particular thing, and it's the same reason that I really like also like Doctor Who, and it's how they made the audio. So there's this audio designer called Ben O, and his surname eludes me. But he's he's one of the pioneers of audio engineering. In this case, at ILM, I think. And he basically invented the sword sounds but also how engines sound on a different planet with a different atmosphere. So perhaps the atmosphere sounds differently and engines in the atmosphere. Yeah. Oh, it's really nice.
We should have an episode dedicated to Star Wars and
definitely
and the physical models. So the physical Star Destroyer instead of a CGI model.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, the artisan craft of actually making physical stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
So we already have been zagging before we actually zig.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
All right, let's zig.
Yeah, so I mean, this was such a weird week, and I'm still recovering. So I'm going to use this podcast recording as a way to getting back to normal, whatever normal means.
Yeah.
So this week, I attended basically a corporate innovation conference.
Oh, okay.
And corporate innovators.
What does that entail?
Well, it's people that work in large corporates with innovation in their job title.
It is the location where the innovation takes place.
No. Yeah.
So the context, it's really hard because people kind of distract us with things.
Yeah, so people that have both manager and innovation in their job title.
Okay,
which is a nice,
definitely a paradox.
And that's why corporate innovators are my favorite species to study. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure. So it's but this was the topic of the conference was AI, of course, and foresighting, which I thought is a really nice combo.
Foresighting, which is
basically
looking into the future and predicting what it is.
Creating futures.
Oh, creating.
Not predicting, but just this might be or this might not really be, but let's explore it anyways.
But shouldn't it be for making then? I mean, I can't make things with my eyes.
That's a really brilliant. From now on, I'm gonna call it for making.
Yeah.
But it's so I thought that's a really nice combination because what you foresight is not true.
No,
and it's not
until you made it.
And even if it happens in different ways, anyways.
Yeah.
So it's So I thought that's a really nice combination because it's the same thing, and we talked about this endlessly. Basically, generative AI is the same thing, right? The output, talking about its correctness, is not even wrong. I mean, it really doesn't apply to this domain, and you have the same thing with foresight. And you can say this is not correct. Well, what's correct about a future I created?
Oh yeah. I have similar things. I have this very sloppy way of predicting things, and people kind of try to catch me on the details.
Yeah,
and it's no, that's irrelevant. I mean, it might not happen, but let's just say it does. And what kind of let's play this scenario out.
Yeah. So it's so I thought that's a great combination. So you get to sit at table with people and you get to discuss things.
Yeah.
And of course, right? I mean, talk is about AI, generative AI, and within 2 seconds, the topic is how to make our corporations more efficient. How to monetize generative AI for our customers.
Yeah.
And that's so at one hand I thought, oh, here we go again. And then I was sitting at a table with a little working group and I thought, well, I'm gonna try it anyways. And I had a very brief, in my mind, rant about the Oracle versus the Muse.
Yeah.
Right? 60 years of automation where the computer is right. Computer says no, it's so
Yep.
Nothing I can do. Computer says no.
Yeah. It's basically you can rather than blaming the system in which you work, you basically or you blame your manager. You now blame the inanimate object.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I mean. We use computers to get to a better answer, faster, more accurate, more detailed, more repeatedly.
Yeah,
right. I mean, and that's 60 years of automation. It's fine, but this is a different kind of beast. And it's much more if you stay into the Greek methodology scene. This is not an oracle. This is a muse. It's not correct. It's not accurate. But intuitively, you might say this is useful.
It sparks the imagination.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's desirable. So it's not about being accurate, but hey, I can work with this.
Yeah.
And how do you decide? Do you decide on formal reasons? Right, about a calculation, and that has to be correct, 3 decimals after the comma or the dot, depending on your
on your location.
On your location. Or do you say, I like it because you have a certain taste?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Or this appeals to you in some other way, right? Or it fits your narrative.
For whatever reason, you say, I'm going to work with this. For me, it's useful, usable, even desirable, which is a very different mode of thinking. The Oracle versus the Muse. And for the first time, we have computers that are in that mode of being musing instead of oracling.
Yeah.
Right, and you actually work with. I mean, so instead of getting to an answer quite directly, right, know the path to the answer, you work with the muse, right? You actually iterate.
I remember so I'm going to say two things. I remember a time in my career where random was embraced by artists. So I went to a regular meeting, it's called The Baby in Amsterdam. And this was a meeting of artists, and they kind of nerdy artists. So they did a lot of things with modern things, and they used random because it basically said, oh, I can liberate my responsibility of the outcome to like an external thing, which isn't predictable per se. And they really, they embrace this very much. And so I think in some form, they basically baked in the muse part that you described. Yeah. And similarly, there's also a guy, oh man, his name, I think this is the thing that I say most. His name eludes me. Joshua Davis. There we go. And he's an artist, and he basically made basic drawings with a piece of processing, actually, a language that you can also program visually, I think, or generate visual things. And he basically said, okay, make an image with this little pattern. So he made the pattern, and he basically generated a, let's say, a painting.
Yeah.
And he said, no, that's not it. So he basically R5, what is it?
F5.
Yeah. F5, Control R. And he continued until he got something, and then he started actually painting the thing. So physically painting. Yeah. And it was so interesting to me that the outcome was always lovely, but still the persons were in charge. Yeah. And to me, it was kind of, rather than depending on their craft to 100% create something, they wanted basically a loose cannon. Yeah. And let's call it a muse, but they wanted to relinquish control of a big part of their creation. Yeah. And I feel like you say, we find this also in generative AI.
Absolutely.
But I think it's something that is, we basically said, well, this is random, and therefore use it as such. And I wonder if that's the end of the line goal of generative AI per se.
I don't think it's that random, right? Because it projects forward from what it learned, and what it learned is what we expressed before. So it basically, I mean, I've used that phrase a couple of times, right? Nostalgia in, nostalgia out.
Yep.
But getting back to this little group I was participating in, one of the participants looked at me and said, I never thought about it like that. No, and that was my lesson.
Sure.
As in, you're right. It's I mean, so the gravity of existing models is so strong.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have been not trained explicitly, but just living with the computer as the oracle. And of course, you're going to use a computer to do things more efficient. Of course, you're going to use a computer to make people superfluous because it can do faster, quicker, more relentless. And
so that's kind of like a bias, if you will, because it comes from a computer. We basically say it is very useful for cost cutting and efficiency and stuff like that.
I mean, I keep using the word gravity. Models have gravity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this computer as an oracle is a model. It's a mental model. It's a paradigm.
Definitely.
Just like once upon a time, I mean, we had a geocentric paradigm of the universe.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, the sun revolves around the Earth because obviously the Earth is not moving. I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Pete, I could swear the Earth is not moving.
Yeah.
I don't feel anything. Let me pause for a second just to check. No, nothing is moving.
Nope.
Obviously, Earth is not moving, right? So I mean, it took some time to actually get to a heliocentric model. And recently, in an article about Paul Graham, the article was called "Taste for Makers." Article from 2004 or something will be in the show notes.
Yes.
And he quoted from Thomas Kuhn, which we also mentioned in a previous podcast about paradigm and paradigm shifts. He actually originated that phrase. And he talked about Copernicus, the gentleman pushing forward on the heliocentric model.
Yep.
So, the sun is central and we are of the earth. One of his motivations to actually get into that model is because, well, the shenanigans of the geocentric model to keep explaining new observations, it got more complicated and weird.
Right.
And he found it aesthetically unpleasing. Just pause for a minute, right?
Yeah.
He was actually moving into an opposing model of the universe, basically because the previous model was a bit ugly. And of course,
he sounds like a mathematician, because they also have like the tendency to gravitate towards beauty in mathematics.
I graduated with a professor whose phrase was "small is beautiful and beauty is our business." There is a whole book about him. It's called "Beauty is Our Business."
Yeah.
And the gentleman would get really obnoxious.
Passionate?
But yeah, let's call it passionate when certain things in the algorithms I was producing were not elegant.
Right.
Where symmetry was not apparent where it should have been. And he kept pestering me about that one. But I really thought this thing about, well, taste.
Yeah.
And the reason, and I think, because I'm for the first time in my certainly professional career, right, I'm now actually disappointed. I'm pausing for dramatic effect now. Or at unease how a technology revolution is playing out. So this whole generative AI for efficiency, for productivity, for monetizing to customers, feels like I feel very uneasy about this one. And this is also an aesthetic thing. So we have this magnificent technology, which is a fundamental break by how we have been creating and programming computers for the past 60 years.
Sure.
Commercially, right? It's very, very, very different. And instead of... I always have to think about a tomato. Yes. So we had already a tomato.
Sure.
Right. So there is this organism, and you grow tomatoes. Mm-hmm. You think, okay, well, maybe if I add some more light to it, they grow faster, or bigger, or more red, or more tasteful. Yeah. So you start experimenting with adding more light, right? Fertilizer. Maybe start crossbreeding different types of tomatoes, right? So, but in the end, it's this organism, and you're just poking it and see what sticks and see what actually works. Right? And generative AI feels very much like tomatoes, right? We have this thing, almost this organism that behaves in certain way that we have to learn. Mm-hmm. Right. For instance, there are so many weird phenomena in this technology. We can't rationalize our way yet. For instance, the fact that a large language model trained on all the publicly available text, including the one from the New York Times, if you give it a certain prompt, it reproduces pretty much to the word a text from the New York Times. Yes. Even though that text is not stored in the model.
No.
So how does that happen?
Yeah.
That's really, really, really weird. And this is this tomato thing, right? The tomato does a certain thing, right? I fed it with this type of fertilizer, and it became really big and really watery. That's the image in Germany from Dutch tomatoes. They're called Wasserbomben, water bombs. So I don't think it's a term of endearment. And that's so we have this fantastic new technology that's much more like a tomato, like an organism, like a biological thing. And what are we going to use it for? Efficiency.
But isn't this typical for a phase that we are in most new, I dare to say technology, but let's say new phenomena in our lives?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's like how are we going to use it? And we tend to gravitate towards previous uses of similar things.
Every new medium ends up starts as the content of the previous medium, right? The very first radio broadcast, somebody was reading a newspaper.
Exactly. Yeah.
The very first television broadcast was just a radio broadcast with a camera.
Yep.
Right. So and that, but
it actually still is.
But this, and it still is. It's but this is so fundamentally, and I'm totally biased, but this is so fundamentally different on what I'm trained on, right? As a computer geek.
Yeah.
And this is such a waste to not explore the differentness of it all, right? And I don't have the answers.
Well, we should, right?
Let's play with it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's
for a moment, postpone judgment, suspension of disbelief.
Oh, but it's from my point of view. I mean, the entire use of generative AI for things such as cost cutting or making people doing away with people in certain roles. Let's say the funniest thing I like is, now we don't need service people.
Yeah.
You know, so the thing that keeps on failing with pretty much every digital enterprise is actually the service, is people expecting a human answer to their questions, to their issues. And somehow we just keep on grabbing to digital means that exactly do not do the thing that we expect.
Yeah.
Having empathy, understanding what you mean, and being able to intervene and change this, make you, or change the product or the service or whatever, so it does fit your expectations.
Yeah.
And I feel like generative AI is, of all the things it does, it's not. It can't change. It can't help you, ever. So if it only can serve you with some information, right? It might be better it might be statistically better in understanding you a little bit quicker.
But
it can't help you. It can't.
Depends on.
It can't help you if you are overdrafted on your account. It can't say we'll give you some extra slack because we know we can predict, let's say, when the next paycheck comes.
Yeah,
you know, and that's stuff like that. That's actually what we expect of service. That's the kind of like the definition that we keep on fighting with the digital means that we put against it. Even the self-help things are, they're basically hiding the problem within the organization from my point of view.
Yeah.
But to your point, generative AI, I think it's so immature at the moment. Now, let's say we are, like you indicated, we are immature.
We are immature compared to, in relation to generative AI.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to get to know each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
So the problem is us.
Absolutely.
And I think that might be the solution towards those symposia.
Yeah.
Is let's get to know each other. You know. And let's indeed experiment.
Yeah, that was really interesting because in the group I talked about earlier, right? So we got into this whole Muse thing, and one lady was taking notes, and at the end of the session she was recapturing the notes, and she said, "We have a whole lot of relearn, reimagine, reorganize, re." And I thought that is such a great summarization.
Yeah.
We have so many things to do. Restart,
and probably also
Yeah, that's also
unlearn.
Good. Yeah, also.
Unbiased, whatever kind of thing. Because the most miscommunication and misjudgments of things are based on the things that we learned before.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they are wrong, but perhaps we need to broaden our perspective a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course I had also to think about the information superhighway.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the... pretty much the same pattern, right? Because if you remember the information superhighway, right?
I can only imagine I think it was a CD it was a book with a dude surfing on what it looked like a skateboard what he was actually surfing.
Yeah. I think it was originally proposed by Al Gore.
Oh, he invented it. Yeah, because it's a series of tubes.
Yeah, it's the and of course the whole idea of the information superhighway was actually that it was dominated by corporations. So you would go to Sony's place in the information superhighway and consume your content there, and then you would go to AT&T's place in the information superhighway and do the AT&T stuff there.
Yeah.
And of course then we got the World Wide Web, which directionally is an information superhighway, but very, very different from any idea that was proposed as the information superhighway.
Was the superhighway not also kind of like the speed in which we could and the ease that we could access information and services and people?
The way I remember it was just connecting existing business networks.
Oh, okay.
Right, and you could say in a sense that's what we have. Well, in a sense we totally don't.
Well, if grabbing back to the generative AI and it being learned on that, I think there's definitely a bias in the network itself, because there are a lot of commercial interests, but also I think in general, the biggest part of the internet, which is maintained, is either very divisive or very much a beauty shot of the world.
Yeah.
You know, the most charming side of a person.
Well, in a sense, you could say that the information superhighways, as envisioned also by Bill Gates in his what was the book called again? The Road Ahead. First edition did it.
I didn't know he even have.
Yeah, sorry. So it's the and you could say that in the end, the version of the World Wide Web we have now is the original envisioned information superhighway dominated by corporations.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, okay, they are not.
So it's
Sony.
a dream come true for those people.
It's not Sony, but it's Facebook. It's not AT&T, but it's Google, etc. Right? But it's the In the preceding 20 years, that vision was radically different.
Yeah.
I can vividly remember that my computer in my little dorm, under the one table I had in my dorm room, was on the internet. It was actual server on the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
I had a purple machine, Silicon Graphic Onyx. Was that on the purple one?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's the
spent weight. Or Oxygen, that might also be.
Could also, no, it wasn't. No, it had
something with an X.
Yes, for sure, something with an X and a really nice shade of purple.
Yep. Yeah.
And freakishly expensive for a student.
Well, for anybody. I mean, I think a friend of mine, he bought it secondhand in America, and I think it still was way past $10,000 in those days. Yeah. And that was ancient. And the only reason that he bought it was because it had this really, really nice graphic card. It was, I think, probably one of the first computers that actually was in that you can ingest the video in real time.
Yeah, could very well be.
Yeah.
Silicon Graphics, after all.
Yeah, true.
Yes. So, so the corporate vision really didn't pan out. It was very much a creator-led movement.
Yeah, but still, it's not the ideal outcome that we had envisioned on, for example, university, because and similar in similar cases also, how the industrial how do you call it, the weapon complex thought of it as the internet, and because it started out as a DARPA, and a how do you call it, a defensive system.
Yeah, how to keep a network of connected computers alive when certain nodes
robustly
were nuked away. Yeah,
and it actually works in that regard. But we also have like the dark web, which is basically that on steroids.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, and but not that nice.
No,
or presumably.
I have no idea.
No, me neither. I've never been there.
Me neither.
I'd like to visit. That might be interesting.
Yeah. So I found it so telling that once you see a different model, you actually never thought about it.
No.
Oh, so we can also do this. Oh, that means we need to read this and on that.
Yeah.
And it's the so there was a bit of a personal epiphany in that sense.
Yeah.
That you have to see these models. You have to. And one of the way to start seeing things is just be aesthetically unpleased with the current, right? In Copernicus kind of way.
Yeah.
This is just ugly.
Just
This
keep
is-
on tinkering until it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. And if again, another example. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. Google had their Google Cloud Next conference, where they tried to do Apple-like keynote and horribly fail.
Was it longer than 30 minutes?
Oh yeah, and but they're so obviously staged. This is a topic in itself. But of course.
Well, let's get into it. Come on. I really like, so lately we have like the two leaders of chip companies in leather jackets.
Yeah.
I think AMD has a person, has a lady person in the leather jacket. Yeah. And we have NVIDIA who has a...
but he has been doing it for decades. I'm sorry.
And they are...
OG.
Yeah, but they are cousins.
Are they cousins? I didn't know.
Yes.
Oh, I did. And
it's not because they kind of like look alike, but they're actual cousins.
Can you imagine?
And it's so interesting because
How would a family reunion look like with those two?
I really don't know. I think they probably will be the organizers, or they probably have people that have people that have people that might have people in the village that organize it. Yeah, because these are... Well, literally, I think NVIDIA was a $2 trillion company, which is that's not even a concept to me. So how can you express that?
This is also in the foresighting realm, right? Is this just projecting a future, making a future, and just pretending it's real?
Yeah, and the interesting thing was both of them kind of present in a very interesting way, because I think they're kind of like presenting to their peers, hopefully, because the things that they say are the gobbledygook. They're just abbreviations that they just came up with, and now it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a new engine named after some mythical animal, and now it's a thing.
Yeah.
And this is, it's really hard to grasp what it actually means.
Yeah.
Because they don't say we have this thing earlier and now we have a better thing or a faster thing or a bigger thing. They say we had this mythical animal before and now we have a new mythical animal. And that's why we can, I don't know. It's interesting to me. But so where you had, for example, the presentations of Steve Jobs, they were kind of grounded into what normal people would like, interests, right? And they made sure it was something like that. Catching up with friends was always in the demo. Being inspired by music or by other things.
1,000
media.
songs in your pocket.
Yes. That's beautiful. It's almost poetry.
Yeah, it is.
And these technical people, I hopefully for the people that listen to them, it might be poetry, but to me, it's like you just said, it's kind of boring.
Yeah. So but a couple of presentations on generative AI, and Google, of course, is selling to enterprises.
Yeah.
So things need to be correct and accurate, and always true, and faster and more efficient. Right, so they had a couple of demos, and the generative AI is combined with, I almost inclined to say, normal semantic searches, normal databases, right? We can actually, and the way I understood those demos and the role of generative AI is actually being a more nicer user interface, so that you can type in, give me the projected sales over the next 5 months across the United States, and make it into an infographic. And in that demo, the lady who was demoing made 2 typos. So she spelled the words wrong, and still she got her
Oh my
output.
God,
So
it's magic.
Yeah, so we have this technology, this tomato, right? It's and we're going to use it for, a nicer user interface or an easier user interface. Well, when I say easier, this is just Zork, right?
Yeah, I always wonder. No, I don't know. Sorry.
The text adventure. Go left.
Oh,
go up.
yeah.
And it's the
which is weird if you compare it with modern games where you use specific devices to do specific things.
Yeah.
Although the controller might also be a little bit outdated.
And of course, a more natural programming language has been the goal also for like 60 years, right? I mean, COBOL started as being a normal business language.
Yeah.
And of course, if you see what they ended up with, that's not a language for people.
Nope. Java was a big step in that regard. SQL as well, yeah.
Right. I mean, in the end, that's still not a normal language, and now you can actually just type with typos and all in a normal looking English sentence, and it kind of works.
And you get results that are kind of normal, but still they might not be correct. That's the big thing
They made a song and dance about that they are.
Yeah.
And to me, that only can mean that the role of generative AI is being the user interface, the command line, if you want.
Yeah.
And I saw you. I saw your mouth curling up.
Yeah, but because it made me think of the shop of Amazon, which was the concept was just cancelled.
Yeah.
They basically said
walk right out. Is that to call it?
Yeah,
that's one. And at least the one where you
basically you walk in, you put things in your pocket, and you walk out without, and you get the bill later because sensors and AI and cameras will follow you around and make sure actually what you take home. And the basic gist was, well, the cameras and sensors and AI don't really work that well. So we had a bunch of people in India that helped us out. And that wasn't a sustainable model.
Yeah.
And we didn't see improvements in the detection of stuff. So we basically canceled on that premise.
Just like Waymo has remote operators, I think 1.15 per car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's odd.
So that if the car...
Because that is actually based on doing the work yourself as a driver, right?
Yeah, so they're self-driving cars.
Oh, the self-driving. Oh, I'm sorry.
But if the car gets in a pickle, an operator can intervene and actually take the car over. And it turns out that the car to operator ratio is higher than 1. So operator to car ratio is higher than 1. So you actually have more people involved in driving the self-driving car.
I get it. I mean, it's a training program. I guess.
Totally. I mean, I'm not listening to technology, but it feels a bit like ignore the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels
it's a little bit
very
Wizard
much
of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, exactly.
See, this is a movie we immediately recalled.
Yeah.
We couldn't do Blade Runner for like 60 seconds. I'm just putting it out there.
I think it's the amount of caffeine and also the day of the week.
Yeah.
Because that particular day was Monday. And
Mondays are a no-no.
I'm not sure if it's some bias I have about myself, and that I actually it's self actuating promise or something like that. But no, that was a bad day to me. Or at least it was a slow day.
It was a very slow day.
But it was a very nice, I still think it's a nice recording.
One of the better ones. I thought. Because I talk less.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I have similar things because I don't want to talk that much. Yeah, but I think, so let's wrap things up. Technical conferences bad because they are kind of oblivious that it might not be that interesting what they say, and it might also, but also specifically generative AI. We still need to learn. We need to learn a lot, and we need to experiment and also say, okay, this is perhaps not the field that we need to apply it.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I was looking for inspiration, and because I also kind of had a mad week, and I really needed a sparring partner, and I used ChatGPT 4, I think, just as a sparring partner, because I needed to find that particular, if there is a particular term to the social pattern that I want to research. And it was a really nice partner because it kind of gave me some inspiration. Exactly like you say, it's really useful to rehash all kinds of already existing information, perhaps not in the shape and form that it might be ultimately correct, but it is really nice.
It is.
Is that the core functionality, and is that the only thing it can do? Well, I'm hoping not.
Me neither.
But but we definitely need to find out.
Yeah, I really see it almost like a lack of imagination from our part that we're using it the way you're describing. I mean, it's a great start, but probably not where we end up in.
No, I do. So, I worked on like the early versions of AI and specifically applications on that, and I basically came up with scenarios that involve like multiple technologies, but the basic gist is it gives us superpowers. It makes us see, hear, think things that we can't with our normal brains.
Yeah.
And so to give you, and the one superpower that I saw quite quickly was seeing patterns. I keep on thinking about the image where the early images where an AI was looking for cat eyes and basically gave the result, and basically everything was a cat eye because it was tuned different. It was tuned a little bit critically, I guess.
Yeah.
But looking for cat eyes, if that's a task, and doing that in volume, and then of course checking it with a real human, it's really, really nice. It's something we definitely can't do without encroaching on the time of a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So indeed, time is the thing, right? I mean, so.
Yeah, but also the seeing patterns that we can't see because we basically don't have the capacity of carrying on all that data in one time frame.
So that's why I keep making that point that when a large language model or diffusion module does something wrong, it could very well be reproducing a pattern we never have seen before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's actually doing things right. But we have never seen it, and now we've seen it and said, this cannot be.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I have this great picture I use in my presentations, where a generated picture with 4 marketing people discussing something on the beach in Cannes. And they look like marketing people, nice hair, nice sunglasses, these bohemian shirts. It's really great. 2 men, 2 women. Really good picture, really great. You could swear it's 4 marketing executives talking media stuff at Cannes, and one of the lady has 3 legs. Which obviously is wrong, because typically...
Probably.
But of course you can imagine, right, all these pictures of people, and sometimes it's hard to track where the limbs go.
Sure.
Right, so I can very much imagine a data set this model had been trained on, where indeed the 3-legged person is actually a pattern. Of course, we typically don't see it because we extrapolate and we kind of stitch together where the hand goes, etc. Right? Yeah. So but is this wrong? Did the model do something wrong? Wrong in its training?
No. It reproduced something it said. Yeah.
It's reproducing a pattern it saw in 2 dimensions because that's what an image is, and here it is. So it's not very useful typically to have a picture with a lady with 3 legs.
It's but it's
not wrong.
No, I think it's a real narrow application, probably.
Yes, very. It's the
by the way, if you want to see images of real people being really weird, go to Reddit and confusing perspectives.
Yeah, well,
it's really interesting, right? It's specifically people with 5 of a guy with a really long arm embracing pretty much 15 people or something like that. It's really funny.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good one. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah.
So the model is right in that sense, in reproducing.
Statistically, yes, it's right.
This.
But with the taste of us, we can sift it out and we can see, no, this isn't right.
So our human super skill is taste.
I guess so, yeah.
That's what I keep coming back to.
Yeah. Okay. Let me say 2 things. So a tip. So I just saw a video of Hoog. And Hoog is, or Hoog, if you are really English. HOOG, which is a YouTube channel, and it makes beautiful visualizations of all kinds of things. And it also it talks about architecture. in most cases, city architecture, which is and problems that all kinds of issues and questions around that topic. So if you want to see stuff like that, it's really nice. And it anthropomorphizes. It uses terms in anthropomorphy to show the patterns that the architects see. So, for example, there's this topic of Tokyo. I think it's kind of like a recent video, and it talks about a stream of architects. They call themselves metabolists. And it's really interesting because they see like a city as an organism, and they say, okay, let's lay down like an ecosystem or an base architecture, and give the city the facilities to grow, but also to shrink, right? Because growing is of course interesting, but with the amount of people living in Tokyo, for example, these days, it might also shrink down.
Oh, fantastic.
So interesting. So as a topic, just to see that video, and it's really nice. So the thing that really captured my attention I guess it's last year or the last 2 years, I think, it is about my task as a designer. So most of the times when people come to me and ask me a question, they come with a problem. And this is my pet peeve, by the way. A lot of design books always talk about, you are a designer, you solve complex problems, things that are wrong.
Yeah.
Specifically. And it's never something else. And I really hate that. So this is I guess my pet hate. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a pet peeve. And the reason why people do this, because it's explainable, right? Problems you can point to. You have a brick in your way, you hit your foot against it.
Obstacles.
It's a problem. You can point to it and you say, so either my foot is in the wrong place or the brick is in the wrong place, but the encounter
for both of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the encounter is the problem. How do we solve this? Dear designer, you are creative, or you have the methods to actually analyze this, solve this problem. And I hate that. Yeah. Because it does away with pretty much all the things that you can do with design. Because it's not, design isn't a CNC machine. It's not subtractive. It's not deleting all problems. It can also be additive, like a 3D printer. And you can also create things that you haven't thought about, or perhaps even that you don't have a word for. Yeah. And this is the thing I really like to introduce. It's a new term, I think. I never heard of it. It's lexical gaps. And this is the big thing in our life, and hopefully we'll get back to it later on in this series of conversations. And a lexical gap is a situation that you don't have a word for. And there are all kinds of things you have, like, for example, if we had COVID, right? And before COVID, we didn't know what Zoom fatigue was. Yeah. And after we experienced it, now we have a word for it, right? We have a thing that has a name now, but it existed before. Only it wasn't relevant enough. So that was So before COVID, we had a lexical gap of people feeling very tired after the Zoom session, and there are loads of other things that might be positive. So not per se problems. No. But also might be very positive, things that you would wish upon. And the reason that people in design books are talking about solving problems is because most things that are right, that are conveniently always present, like gravity or air, are taken for granted and don't have a word. There's a lexical gap for things that are cool, that are pretty awesome, but not that awesome to give it a name.
And I mentioned foresighting in the beginning. I mean, maybe foresighting is just a way to get to potential future lexical gaps. And,
Yes.
I mean, and because the moment you have a word for it, right, you actually filled a lexical gap or made something up to fill in the potential lexical gap. At that moment, you can start thinking about it and you can start dancing with it.
Yes.
The moment you have Zoom fatigue, we can dance with this one, right?
Yeah, because you gave it a name, you gave it a cause, and now you can solve it.
Yeah.
Not Zoom.
That's
or hydrate or whatever kind of thing. I don't know.
That's really interesting.
So there are all kinds of things, right? You have spatial disparity, which is a cause of these aren't right. These aren't actually terms. These are ChatGPT came up with these terms.
Of course.
And so there's also digital financial orientation. Dysfunctional. No, I'm sorry. Digital financial disorientation. So basically, because we don't have currency in our hands, right? We learn what the value of currency or the value of value by actually touching it, having a little stack of money.
You bastard. Okay.
And at a certain point, we made everything digital. We went from trading like value stuff or other value stuff to an abstract model, let's say shells, to something that has a desirable thing like coins, and then paper, and then plastic, and now we have nothing.
Yeah.
We have ephemeral stuff, and that causes digital financial disorientation. People don't know how much value they have.
Yeah, because I kept pigeonholing generative AI as finding a better question.
Yeah.
But actually, it's finding the lexical gaps.
Yes, which is weird, because then you're basically looking for the holes in You're looking for the holes in the in our favorite word, the interstitium.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think we should stop this podcast series. We are done.
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing.
It is. So, and of course, but we're not done, because now we need to find. So my next question was, how do we find these things? And I must not be the first to do that. So I basically came to, so what is an extreme scenario that we don't know anything about or did not know anything about, but we needed to find out? So I came up with, for example, NASA. NASA went to space before they knew about the things in space, right? So what did they do to find out what is in space, to actually make sure when they shot up a rocket with a human in there, that human would actually survive? And of course, we know of Leica, and we knew of all kinds of sensors putting in there. But before they did that, they needed to come up with what are the things that we take for granted on Earth, which are totally self-evident, that we need to take into account, that might not be the same in space. Yeah. And so they did all kinds of things. For example, and these are the things that I'd like you guys to take home with you, which is the things that are also kinds of great design practices. And one of them, for example, is, I'm sorry, I'm taking notes, by the way. The one is cross-disciplinary collaborations. So this is very uncommon, right? If we have a technical problem, we have technical people talking about it. Yeah. If we have a prettification problem, we invite artists, and we invite like visually strong people. But we nearly never combine those people. We always have a strict distributions of domain problems and domain solutions. So they basically say...
And of course, domains we made up.
Yeah, exactly. The domains are basically saying, well, this is so valuable, let's focus on that in particular and not other things. But things are connected. So the other things are simulations. Human factors research is also very interesting. Speculative design, which is one of my pet favorite things to do. And of course, scenario planning. And all those things. But these are kind of like tricks to find out, right? For example, have an analog mission. So rather than going to Mars and play out what you might encounter in, let's say, if you are mentally equipped to do that, you can set up something on Earth, and lock people up in a very inconvenient space,
like in that movie.
Like in that movie.
Do we know the name of the movie? Capricorn 1? No.
Well, there are a couple of them, but the one that comes to mind is the geodome kind of thing. I think it's something dome. Look it up in the show notes.
Yeah. So
but it's a humorous.
No. I was thinking about that movie where they are going to Mars or the moon or whatever, and they never got the technology to work, so they actually staged it on Earth. But then the rocket blows up. So what do you do with the astronauts that were supposed to simulate the thing? The answer is you try and kill them. And that's
I never saw that.
It's a really great movie. It's from the 70s or something, even earlier.
Okay, let's
in show notes.
To the Netflix.
Oh, this lexical gap thing we should discuss next time.
But these methods to find out are basically how can we maximize the amount of stumbling that we can do, so we can actually find out, right? How can we put ourselves in a position that might look like the situation that we are looking for? But it's too accidental. Like your math teacher says, it's not elegant. It's basically maximizing the amount of luck that you have, rather than trying to do that. And by the way, the reason that I'm looking for lexical gaps is because I feel like things that are good are still open for improvement. And I think we're focusing too much on problems rather than things that just need to improve a little bit more. And that's, and scene. That's basically, I think I did it in about 15 minutes. We have a clock now, a mini clock, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But lexical gaps definitely will come up in further podcasts.
Yeah, we should. I really think this is it.
And this is temporarily named, by the way. It's the term I came up with the soonest. But there's probably a more charming name for it. If you have suggestions, email us at IDs at itsjustamodel.com, and be like Franklin, be a bro, and translate the value that you experience to something of value for us.
Or be a sister, right? We're that inclusive.
Or be a bro or a sis. No, that sis is something else. Okay. Is there anything we need to add?
Dude, you just dropped the biggest bombshell of this year in my brain, and so please stop adding stuff.
Sorry.
This should have been a 2-hour podcast, I think.
No. Then we need more coffee, I think.
Yeah, we told over.
Yeah. So next time.
I'm done.
Okay.
In a good way.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Ciao, guys.